is to remove the democratic rights of New Zealanders.
Tracy Martin.
A good call, Mr. Chair.
Kia ora. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, can I acknowledge my fan club on the other side of the House? Thank you very much for your support. Mr. Chair, I rise to speak on the part one of the bill and to acknowledge that we've heard an awful lot about mum and dad New Zealanders, so I thought it might be a good time to actually hear from one. And I'd like to respond to Minister Ryle's statement where he said that New Zealand must take this action. And so here we go again, Mr. Chair. New Zealanders must take this action. We've heard this before. It was called the Tina theory once before. There is no alternative. This is the only way forward, according to the National Party. And back in the 1980s, Roger Douglas said the same thing. Back in the 1990s, Ruth Richardson said the same thing. I noticed that both sides of the House have been batting who sold what back in the 1980s and 1990s across back and forward. However, all I can say about that, Mr. Chair, is they're both as bad as each other, and this country needs a New Zealand First-led government to actually come up with something different, something vital, and something recognises that New Zealanders own this nation. They own these assets. They have worked for these assets, and it is their interests and all of New Zealanders' interests that should be put first. So that's what we're being told. We're being told there is no alternative. That's what the National Party wants us to believe. They want us to believe that this is not a philosophical stand. This is a philosophical stand because there is always an alternative. You make a decision and then you find a way to bring that decision to fruition. If this government wanted to make a decision to save those assets, they could do so. If this government wanted to sit down and actually work with others to find another pathway to prosperity for this country, they could do so. But philosophically, they are starved for ideas. This is as good as it gets, unfortunately, and it's been brought forward by a finance minister from a previous age. And that is a shame. Because we had an opportunity in this country, we had an opportunity to recognise the faults from the past, come up with a new way forward, join together and take this nation on that pathway. But that government refuses to even think outside that box. And what a shame. And as a mum New Zealander who lived through those times, who lived through the damage that was done with no trickle down, with no opportunity for mum and dad New Zealanders like myself to buy anything, this is a farce. This conversation is a farce because no mum and dad New Zealander anywhere near where I live will be able to buy anything from this shares. But let's just talk about that, about mum and dad New Zealanders buying back 49% of what they currently already own. I mean, the thing's a joke. How can you try to sell that to the people? The people know they own it. The people know they own it now. And yet your spin doctors, your marketing is attempting to tell them that this is a good thing to buy back your own product. They own it, they've always owned it, and when New Zealand First repurchases it after the National Party is gone, then they will own it once again. So, but let's just ignore that fact. Let's ignore the fact that this is somehow you're trying to convince the New Zealand public that they need to buy 49% of something they already own. Let's just try and ignore the fact that actually the profits, you're now handing 49% of the profits from those assets to whoever it is that buys them, with no safeguards that that will stay in the country. And let's just go there before Mr Hanare stands up and decides to have a go around about New Zealand First policy about a partial float of Kiwi Bank only to New Zealanders so that that bank could grow its business to handle the government's business, thereby bringing back millions upon millions of dollars worth of banking fees currently going offshore to Australia so that we could have that money back in circulation here. Let's just get that out of the way, shall we, Mr Hanare, so that we can't sort of bring that up and twist it into something that looks like this model you're trying to sell on the New Zealand public. But let's just ignore all those obvious little things. Let's actually talk about, and why I'm stunned that the Labour opposition hasn't talked about it, These assets are to serve the New Zealand people. That's what they were built for. They were built to serve the New Zealand people, not to provide a profit into a general coffer for funds to be flitted away somewhere else. Now, what would happen if we in this House decided that that was our philosophical stand? Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair?
Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I think it's worthwhile as we're working our